Hello my friends, Dr. Mandell here. Today I'm going to share something that may shock you. There is a so-called healthy food that millions of people eat every single day, believing it protects their heart, lowers their cholesterol, and helps them live longer. But what if I told you this food may actually increase your risk of heart attack more than cholesterol itself? For decades we've been told that cholesterol is the main cause of heart attacks. We've been conditioned to fear that number on our blood test. If it goes up, we panic. If it goes down, we feel safe. But my friends, the truth is much deeper than that. Heart attacks are not simply about cholesterol. They are about inflammation, chronic, silent, ongoing inflammation inside your arteries. Let me explain this in a way that makes sense. Inside every artery in your body is a thin, delicate lining called the endothelium. Think of it as a smooth Teflon coating that allows blood to flow freely and effortlessly. When that lining is healthy, your circulation is smooth. Oxygen and nutrients move easily to your heart and brain. Everything works beautifully. But when inflammation enters the picture, everything changes. Inflammation is the body's natural defense mechanism. If you cut your finger, inflammation rushes in to repair the damage that's healthy and necessary. The problem begins when inflammation becomes chronic, when it's there day after day, year after year, silently damaging tissues from the inside out. Now here's where the misunderstanding happens. When you consume excessive sugar, refined carbohydrates, ultra-processed foods, and inflammatory oils, your blood sugar spikes, insulin rises, oxidative stress increases. These factors irritate and damage the endothelial lining of your arteries. Tiny microscopic injuries begin to form along those artery walls. Your body is intelligent. It doesn't ignore damage. It tries to fix it. Cholesterol comes to the rescue like a repair patch. It helps seal and stabilize those injured areas. But instead of asking why the artery was damaged in the first place, we blame the cholesterol for being there. That's like blaming firefighters for showing up at a fire. The real issue is the inflammation that started the fire. When the arterial wall is repeatedly injured by chronic inflammation, plaque begins to build, but plaque alone isn't always the problem. Many people have plaque and never suffer a heart attack. What makes a heart attack deadly is when inflamed plaque becomes unstable and ruptures. When that rupture happens, a blood clot forms rapidly to stop what the body perceives as bleeding. That clot can suddenly block blood flow to the heart muscle, and that's a heart attack. Notice something important here. It's not simply cholesterol floating around in your bloodstream that causes the event. It's the unstable, inflamed environment inside the artery that creates the danger. Now let's just go even deeper. Chronic inflammation is fueled by modern lifestyle factors. Constant stress elevates cortisol, lack of sleep disrupts hormonal balance, sedentary living slows circulation, smoking introduces toxins. Processed foods overload the body with chemicals and sugars. All of these contribute to endothelial dysfunction, the breakdown of that smooth inner lining. When the endothelium becomes damaged, it loses its ability to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is critical for relaxing blood vessels and maintaining proper blood flow. Without it, arteries stiffen, blood pressure rises, circulation becomes compromised. This stiff, inflamed environment becomes a breeding ground for plaque instability. You can have normal cholesterol and still be inflamed. You can have moderately elevated cholesterol and be metabolically healthy with low inflammation. The context matters. Research now shows that markers like C-reactive protein, CRP, insulin resistance, high triglycerides, and elevated blood sugar are powerful predictors of cardiovascular risk. These markers reflect inflammation and metabolic stress, not just cholesterol levels. When triglycerides are high and HDL is low, it often signals insulin resistance. Insulin resistance promotes the formation of small, dense LDL particles. These smaller particles are more likely to penetrate a damaged arterial wall. Again, the key word is damaged. Without inflammation and injury to the lining, penetration is far less likely. Inflammation is the doorway. Think about this carefully. Traditional populations consuming natural fats, whole foods, and unprocessed diets historically had low rates of heart disease. It wasn't until refined sugars, processed seed oils, and ultra-processed foods became dominant that heart disease skyrocketed. Something changed in the environment, and that something was chronic inflammatory exposure. The body does not wake up one morning and decide to have a heart attack. This process builds silently over years. Inflammation quietly injures the arterial walls. The immune system repeatedly responds. Plaque forms as a protective response. Over time, if the inflammatory triggers remain, the plaque becomes unstable. And instability is what kills. This is why simply lowering cholesterol without addressing insulin may not fully solve the problem. If the arterial lining remains irritated, the risk remains. True prevention requires calming the fire. Reducing added sugars stabilizes blood sugar. Choosing whole, unprocessed foods lowers oxidative stress. Increasing omega-3 intake helps balance inflammatory pathways. Managing stress lowers cortisol-driven inflammation. Regular movement improves endothelial function. Quality sleep restores repair mechanisms. When you reduce inflammation, you protect that delicate inner lining. You maintain flexibility in your arteries. You preserve nitric oxide production. You create stability instead of vulnerability. The focus must shift from fear to understanding. Cholesterol is not the villain we once believed it to be. It plays essential roles in hormone production, cell membrane integrity, and brain function. The real danger lies in the chronic inflammatory environment that disrupts normal vascular health. If we continue to focus only on the number and ignore the underlying inflammation, we miss the bigger picture. Heart attacks are not random acts of fate. They are often the final event in a long inflammatory process. The good news: inflammation is largely influenced by lifestyle choices, and that means you have power. When you support your body with proper nutrition, movement, stress management, and restorative sleep, you reduce inflammatory burden, you protect your arteries from the inside out. And that is where real heart protection begins, not in fear of cholesterol, but in the elimination of chronic inflammation that silently drives cardiovascular disease. For years, we've been taught that low fat means heart healthy. Walk down any grocery store aisle and you'll see it everywhere. Low fat yogurt, fat-free salad dressing, cholesterol-free spreads, whole grain snack bars, heart healthy cereals. The labels look reassuring. The packaging is attractive. The claims are bold. But here sits the uncomfortable truth. Many of these so-called healthy foods may actually increase your risk of heart disease, not protect you from it. When manufacturers remove fat from food, they don't leave it empty. They have to replace it with something to maintain taste and texture. And most of the time, what replaces that fat is refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, artificial flavorings, and highly processed carbohydrates. Fat gives food flavor and satiety. Remove the fat and the food becomes bland, so sugar steps in. Now think about what happens inside your body when you consume these low-fat, high-sugar foods. Your blood sugar spikes rapidly. Your pancreas releases insulin to bring that sugar down. Repeated spikes throughout the day create insulin resistance over time. When cells stop responding properly to insulin, blood sugar stays elevated longer. The body enters a state of metabolic stress. And metabolic stress fuels inflammation. This is where the real danger lies. Low-fat flavored yogurts are a perfect example. Many contain more sugar than a dessert. They're marketed as healthy because they're low in fat, but the added sugars can drive triglycerides up, reduce HDL, your protective cholesterol, and promote small, dense LDL particles that are more damaging in an inflamed artery. Then we have processed vegetable oils, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, canola oil. These oils are heavily refined, chemically extracted, deodorized, and processed at high temperatures. They are high in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, omega-6 fats are not inherently bad. Your body needs them. But in excess, especially without enough omega-3 to balance them, they promote inflammatory pathways. The modern diet is overloaded with omega-6 fats from processed foods, fast food, salad dressings, packaged snacks, crackers, and baked goods. When omega-6 intake far exceeds omega-3 intake, the body shifts toward a pro-inflammatory state. Inflammation again becomes the common thread. Margarine and processed breads were once recommended as heart-healthy alternatives to butter, but many contain trans fats, artificial fats created through hydrogenation. Even though regulations have reduced trans fats in many countries, they still appear in small amounts in processed foods under the label partially hydrogenated oils. Trans fats are particularly harmful because they increase LDL, decrease HDL, and significantly promote inflammation. They damage the endothelial lining of blood vessels and increase cardiovascular risk dramatically. Even certain whole grain snack foods can be misleading. Yes, whole grains can be part of a healthy diet, but when they're refined, pulverized into flour, mixed with sugars, seed oils, and preservatives, they no longer behave like whole foods in your body. They digest quickly. They spike blood sugar, they trigger insulin surges. And when this pattern repeats daily, metabolic dysfunction develops. Breakfast cereals labeled heart healthy often contain added sugars and refined grains. A bowl of cereal in the morning may cause a rapid glucose spike followed by a crash, leaving you hungry again within hours. That cycle keeps insulin elevated and contributes to fat storage and inflammation. Fat-free salad dressings are another trap. When healthy natural fats are removed, manufacturers often add sugar, corn syrup, thickeners, and artificial stabilizers. Ironically, without healthy fats, your body absorbs fewer fat-soluble vitamins from the vegetables you're eating. Vitamins A, D, E, and K require fat for proper absorption. So not only are you potentially increasing inflammation, but you're also decreasing nutrient absorption. Ultra-processed foods contain additives, emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, and preservatives that may disrupt gut health. Emerging research suggests that certain additives can alter the gut microbiome, increasing intestinal permeability, sometimes referred to as leaky gut. When the gut barrier becomes compromised, inflammatory compounds can enter the bloodstream more easily, further fueling systemic inflammation. Again, we see the same pattern. Chronic low-grade inflammation is not always dramatic. You don't feel it day to day. There's no alarm bell. But silently over years, inflammation affects blood vessels, insulin signaling, and metabolic balance. Here's something else to consider. When people switch to low-fat processed foods, they often feel less satisfied. Fat promotes satiety. Without it, hunger returns quickly. This leads to more frequent snacking, more blood sugar fluctuations, and more caloric intake overall. Ironically, the attempt to reduce heart disease risk by cutting natural fats often leads to weight gain, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome, major risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Natural fats like olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish provide anti-inflammatory benefits. They support cell membranes, hormone production, and brain health. They promote satiety and stabilize blood sugar. But when we replace those natural fats with refined carbohydrates and industrial oils, we disrupt the body's balance. The problem is not food in its natural state. The problem is food that has been stripped, refined, chemically altered, and engineered for shelf life rather than health. Marketing can be powerful. Words like low-fat, cholesterol-free, and heart-healthy are designed to create a sense of security. But the ingredient list tells the real story. If the label contains added sugars, syrups, hydrogenated oils, artificial flavors, emulsifiers, and preservatives, it's no longer a simple whole food. Your body recognizes real food. It struggles with synthetic combinations. When inflammation rises, the endothelium becomes irritated. When insulin resistance develops, lipid patterns shift unfavorably. When omega-6 intake dominates without omega-3 balance, inflammatory mediators increase. All of these pathways converge on the same outcome: increased cardiovascular risk. The solution is not complicated, but it requires awareness. Choose foods as close to their natural state as possible. If it grew in the ground, swam in the ocean, walked on land, or came from a tree, it's likely a better option than something manufactured in a factory with a long shelf life. Healthy fats are not the enemy. Excess sugar, refined carbohydrates, inflammatory seed oils, and ultra-processed foods are the true drivers of metabolic imbalance. The shift away from natural fats toward processed low-fat products was well-intentioned, but it created unintended consequences. When you remove real nourishment and replace it with engineered substitutes, the body pays the price. And over time, that price can show up as heart disease. Understanding this empowers you to make better choices, not based on marketing claims, but based on how food truly affects your biology from the inside out. For many years, we've been trained to look at one number when it comes to heart health, total cholesterol. If it's high, we worry. If it's within range, we feel relieved. But the human body is far more complex than a single number on a lab report. Heart disease does not develop in isolation from the rest of your metabolism. It is deeply connected to how your body handles sugar, how sensitive your cells are to insulin, and how stable your blood chemistry remains throughout the day. In many cases, blood sugar and insulin resistance are stronger predictors of heart disease than total cholesterol alone. Let's just break this down in simple terms. Every time you eat carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates or sugar, your blood glucose rises. Your pancreas releases insulin to move that glucose into your cells for energy. That's normal and healthy. But when this process happens repeatedly throughout the day, from sugary drinks, processed snacks, white bread, cereals, desserts, and hidden sugars, insulin levels stay elevated. Over time, your cells begin to resist insulin's signal. They stop responding efficiently. This is called insulin resistance. When insulin resistance develops, the body must produce even more insulin to keep blood sugar under control. This creates a vicious cycle: higher insulin, higher blood sugar, greater metabolic stress. Now here's where the heart comes into the picture. Insulin resistance changes the way your body handles fats. It increases triglycerides, the type of fat circulating in your blood. High triglycerides are strongly associated with cardiovascular risk. At the same time, insulin resistance often lowers HDL cholesterol, the protective form that helps remove excess cholesterol from the bloodstream. So now you have a dangerous combination: high triglycerides, low HDL, elevated blood sugar, chronic inflammation. This metabolic pattern is far more predictive of heart disease than total cholesterol alone. Let's go deeper. Not all LDL cholesterol behaves the same way. LDL particles vary in size and density. Large, fluffy LDL particles are generally less harmful. Small, dense LDL particles are more concerning because they are more likely to penetrate a damaged arterial lining and become oxidized. What promotes the formation of small, dense LDL? High sugar intake, high refined carbohydrate consumption, insulin resistance. When blood sugar is frequently elevated, it can also lead to glycation, a process where sugar molecules attach to proteins and lipids in the bloodstream. Glycated LDL is more likely to become oxidized, and oxidized LDL is far more inflammatory and damaging to the arterial wall. Again, we see the connection. The issue is not simply how much cholesterol is present. The issue is the metabolic environment in which that cholesterol exists. If inflammation is low, insulin sensitivity is good, triglycerides are controlled, and HDL is strong, the cardiovascular risk profile looks very different, even if total cholesterol is moderately elevated. Now consider metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions that include abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, elevated fasting blood sugar, high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol. When someone meets several of these criteria, the risk of heart disease increases dramatically. What drives metabolic syndrome? Primarily excess sugar intake, refined carbohydrates, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, and poor sleep. Notice something important. Total cholesterol is not even part of the diagnostic criteria for metabolic syndrome, yet metabolic syndrome is one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular events. That should tell us something. Your body thrives on stability. When blood sugar swings dramatically, high after meals and crashing later, it stresses the vascular system. Repeated glucose spikes damage the endothelial lining of arteries. They promote oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling. Insulin itself, when chronically elevated, can contribute to arterial stiffness and dysfunction. It also promotes fat storage, especially around the abdomen, which is metabolically active tissue that releases inflammatory cytokines. This visceral fat, the fat stored around internal organs, is particularly harmful. It doesn't just sit there quietly. It acts like an endocrine organ, releasing substances that promote inflammation and worsen insulin resistance. So now the heart is facing multiple challenges: inflammatory signals from visceral fat, elevated triglycerides, small dense LDL particles, oxidative stress from high glucose, reduced protective HDL. All of this creates an unstable vascular environment, and yet someone could look at their total cholesterol and believe they're safe. That's why a more comprehensive view is critical. Fasting insulin levels, hemoglobin A1C, triglyceride to HDL ratio, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, these provide a broader picture of cardiovascular risk. When triglycerides are high and HDL is low, it often signals insulin resistance. When fasting glucose creeps upward year after year, even within the normal range, it may indicate early metabolic dysfunction. The body doesn't suddenly become diseased overnight. It progresses gradually, one elevated sugar spike at a time, one inflammatory meal at a time, one sedentary day at a time. The good news is that insulin resistance is highly responsive to lifestyle changes. Reducing refined carbohydrates and added sugars can dramatically lower triglycerides within weeks. Increasing physical activity improves insulin sensitivity quickly. Even moderate weight loss reduces visceral fat and inflammatory burden. Healthy fats, fiber-rich vegetables, quality protein, adequate sleep, and stress management all improve metabolic stability. When blood sugar remains steady, insulin levels normalize. When insulin sensitivity improves, triglycerides fall. HDL often rises. LDL particle size may shift toward larger, less dense forms. The entire cardiovascular landscape changes. Instead of focusing solely on lowering cholesterol numbers, the goal becomes improving metabolic health. Because the heart is not separate from the rest of the body, it responds to the hormonal and inflammatory environment created by your daily habits. When metabolism is balanced, inflammation is controlled, and insulin sensitivity is strong, the arteries are more resilient. That's just the deeper truth. Heart disease is not just a cholesterol story, it's a metabolic story. And when you improve the way your body handles sugar and insulin, you address one of the most powerful drivers of cardiovascular risk, often more powerfully than focusing on total cholesterol alone. Understanding this shifts the conversation from fear of a single number to mastery of your overall metabolic health. When it comes to protecting your heart, the solution is not found in a magic pill or a single laboratory number. It's found in the daily choices you make, the foods you put on your plate, the way you move your body, the quality of your sleep, and how you manage stress. The heart thrives when inflammation is low, blood sugar is stable, and circulation is strong. And the most powerful way to support that environment is through whole, natural foods. Let's start with a simple principle. If a food looks close to the way it did in nature, your body recognizes it. If it has been stripped, refined, chemically altered, and packaged with a long list of ingredients, your body has to work harder to process it. Whole foods contain nutrients in balanced proportions, vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, and healthy fats all working together. These nutrients don't act in isolation, they support each other, they create synergy inside your body. Take vegetables, for example. Colorful vegetables are rich in antioxidants. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals, unstable molecules that contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation. Leafy greens support nitric oxide production, which helps blood vessels relax and maintain proper circulation. Cruciferous vegetables support detoxification pathways, helping the body clear inflammatory compounds. Fiber plays a powerful role as well. Soluble fiber helps regulate blood sugar by slowing the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream. This prevents sharp insulin spikes. Fiber also supports a healthy gut microbiome. When beneficial gut bacteria ferment fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation and strengthen the intestinal barrier. A healthy gut means less systemic inflammation, and less inflammation means healthier arteries. Now let's talk about healthy fats. For years, people were told to avoid fats at all costs, but natural fats are essential for cellular health. Every cell membrane in your body is made of fat. Hormones are built from fat. Your brain is largely composed of fat. The key is choosing the right fats. Extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols that reduce inflammation and support vascular health. Avocados provide monounsaturated fats that improve lipid profiles and enhance satiety. Nuts and seeds offer healthy fats along with magnesium, which supports blood pressure regulation and muscle relaxation. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 help counterbalance excessive omega-6 intake and reduce inflammatory signaling. They also help stabilize heart rhythms and improve endothelial function. These natural fats do not inflame the arteries. In fact, they help protect them. Clean protein sources are equally important. Protein supports muscle mass, especially as we age. Muscle tissue plays a critical role in glucose metabolism. The more muscle you have, the better your body handles blood sugar. Stable blood sugar reduces insulin resistance and lowers cardiovascular risk. Choose quality protein sources. Eggs, fish, poultry, legumes, and responsibly raised meats. Protein combined with healthy fats and fiber creates balanced meals that stabilize energy and prevent sugar crashes. Now consider added sugars. Reducing added sugars may be one of the most powerful changes you can make. Sugar promotes insulin spikes, increases triglycerides, contributes to fatty liver, and fuels inflammation by minimizing sugary drinks, processed desserts, sweetened snacks, and hidden sugars in packaged foods. You dramatically lower metabolic stress. Hydration also matters. Water supports circulation, nutrient delivery, and detoxification. Dehydration can increase blood viscosity, placing added strain on the cardiovascular system. Simple habits, drinking water consistently throughout the day, can support overall heart health. But nutrition is only part of the equation. Movement is medicine. Regular physical activity improves endothelial function, that delicate lining inside your arteries. Exercise stimulates nitric oxide production, allowing blood vessels to dilate and improve circulation. It enhances insulin sensitivity, lowers triglycerides, raises HDL, and reduces inflammation. You don't need extreme workouts. Consistency is more important than intensity. Brisk walking, strength training, stretching, and balance exercises all contribute to cardiovascular resilience. Sleep is another pillar often overlooked. During deep sleep, your body repairs tissues, balances hormones, and reduces inflammatory markers. Poor sleep elevates cortisol and disrupts glucose metabolism. Chronic sleep deprivation is associated with higher cardiovascular risk. Aim for restorative, uninterrupted sleep. Create a calming nighttime routine. Limit blue light exposure before bed. Protect your sleep as you would protect your heart, because they are connected. Stress management is equally critical. Chronic stress keeps the body in a state of fight or flight. Cortisol and adrenaline remain elevated. Blood pressure rises. Inflammation increases. Over time, this constant stress response damages blood vessels. Deep breathing exercises, meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, and meaningful social connections all help regulate the nervous system. When the body shifts into a parasympathetic state, the rest and repair mode, inflammation decreases and healing improves. Heart protection is not about perfection. It's about consistent patterns. Whole foods nourish your cells. Healthy fats support vascular flexibility. Fiber stabilizes blood sugar. Protein maintains muscle and metabolic strength. Movement enhances circulation. Sleep restores balance. Stress management calms inflammatory pathways. Each small decision compounds over time. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Begin with one change. Replace sugary beverages with water. Add leafy greens to one meal per day. Cook with olive oil instead of processed seed oils. Take a 20-minute walk after dinner. These steps may seem simple, but biologically they are powerful. When inflammation decreases, The endothelial lining recovers, nitric oxide production improves, blood vessels regain flexibility, lipid patterns shift favorably, insulin sensitivity strengthens. The body has an incredible ability to heal when given the right environment. True heart protection is not found in fear. It's found in understanding how your daily habits influence your internal chemistry. Whole natural foods are not trendy. They are foundational. When you nourish your body with real food and support it with movement, rest, and balance, you reduce inflammation at its source. And when inflammation is controlled, the heart becomes stronger, more resilient, and better protected for the years ahead. That is where real prevention lives, not in restriction and fear, but in nourishment and consistency from the inside out.